Check, quick sound check. Can everybody hear us loud and clear? What's going on, Coach Paul?
I hear you loud and clear, Coach. Welcome back.
Welcome back. Feels like Monday. It's definitely Tuesday, uh, but it feels like Monday. But welcome back to another week of trading. Welcome back to At the Buzzer, our market recap. If this is your first time here, I am Coach Jay. That is Coach Paul. The goal of this segment is to review what happened in the markets for the day. We may talk about some markets that you have not traded before, but we believe our goal as traders is to identify opportunity, see how we could have taken advantage of those opportunities while managing our risk. If this is our first time meeting, I'm Coach Jay. I've been a top step performance coach since June of 2023. Been trading for the past 13 years and in the futures markets for the past 6, and that is Coach Paul. Coach Paul, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Coach Paul. I've been with Topstep for over a year and a half, acting as a performance coach. I've been involved in the futures industry for 4 decades, and I'm here to share some of my experience and knowledge, and maybe help you become a better or successful trader.
Thank you for that, Coach Paul. Thank you all for joining today. Let us know how you did to start today. We didn't have At the Buzzer yesterday, of course, because yesterday was an abbreviated session with Martin Luther King Day and the presidential inauguration. But let us know how your trading week has started so far. Are you up on the week, down on the week? Anything you've learned so far. I think there's a lot to learn, especially for any of the traders who have not traded during a Trump presidency, and we'll get into that a little bit. Not into the politics of it, but into the volatility
Random.
and
Yeah.
the randomness of it, which you'll have to be aware of because that is the current state, right? Volatility is something that we love as traders where it presents opportunity, but knowing how to manage your risk in it is extremely important. Got my first payout after years of failing from Brandon Durant. Brandon, congratulations.
Well,
Way to be persistent after years. And hopefully that's just the first one, right? Hopefully that's the start of many.
great job, Brandon. Congratulations.
Uh, his royal trade says greener than a celery stalk. Thank you to crude oil. Uh, Crude seeing some volatility as well. Nice to see that you're green. Linus Rain up 1966 on the day, but can't stay. That's fine. You did your job for the day. 1966 on the day. You don't have to stay and listen to us. Great trading. We will see you tomorrow. Um, two
Hopefully
combine.
that walk is a little warmer than the one here in Chicago.
Oh man, I woke up this morning and it said it was 3 degrees outside. I was gonna go to the gym and I said, forget it. I'm not going.
Kept the gym inside.
Yeah, I'll do some push-ups. Uh, But let's get into the markets. We did not really have any planned news out that was going to affect the U.S. equities markets. We did have a Canadian CPI number that came out a little bit under the expectation, 1.8%. Forecast was 1.9%. Um, but we know, and we just kind of mentioned it. We have Trump speaking right now, actually, speaking about tariffs and using. Right now, we see in this headline coming from Financial Juice, Trump seeks tariff leverage over U.S. MCA talks. And is looking to renegotiate that deal, which is the United States Mexico Canada agreement, before 2026, and that's what he's going to use his tariffs for, which are set to go in place. I believe the last time I heard was February 1st. Uh,
Yes.
and and did we also did get Netflix earnings? So Netflix came out. Looks like they beat on their earnings, $4.27 per share. With the estimate was $4.18. It looks like they missed on revenue by a little bit. Um, And that's about it. We saw a knee-jerk reaction in Netflix. Looks like it pushed up to the upside. Last I checked, it came down off of those highs, but I believe those are new all-time highs in Netflix. And we'll see, right? One of the more important tech stocks out there, and we're coming into earnings season for all of the big tech companies. Uh, so we will see. Boomer Bryant says Netflix up 12% after hours, and that's going to change a bunch, right? It was up, it was down, all around. I think what really matters is how it opens up tomorrow morning, um, when traders can get back into trading it. Anything else on the news that you want to mention, Coach?
No, just if you're trading in the evening, I would tighten your stops up. Just last night we witnessed that in stocks when S&P broke what from 67 to 94, almost 70 points in the matter of the kickoff and the introduction of the national championship game. Um, they cost me a little bit. I should have. I have experience in on these random headlines. Um, tighten it up. I have the option of using options. You don't. Um, be aware of it. Um, heck, it could be on your side. You could have been short. But the volatility overnight is going to pick up. I'm very confident of that. So be aware of that.
Absolutely, definitely not the time you want to be over leveraged. Uh, you might see it as an opportunity to make a whole bunch of money in a short period of time, but remember, there's always somebody on the losing end of those trades, and I look at it the same way I look at any news events. Um, Planned news events. The unfortunate part about these is they could just drop whenever, but not trying to make sense of it right away and trading after the dust settles a little bit, if you have the opportunity to, right? Sometimes you're going to be in a position, it's going to, news is going to drop. It might stop you out. It might put you into profit. Just plan how you're going to respond before something like that happens because it can happen at any given time. Let's get into the markets a little bit. There are 35 different markets that we can trade with Top Step accounts, not just the equity markets. And today, to the downside, we had lean hogs down 1.84%, heating oil up down 2.71%, and nat gas, our biggest percentage mover to the downside at 4.15%. To the upside, we had soybeans up 3.24%, wheat futures up 3.57%, and soybean meal up 4.74% for our biggest percentage mover to the upside.
The soy meal.
Soy meal, soybeans, those were actually, I think it was last Thursday, where I think the
Yeah.
same three top percentage movers to the downside sometime last week. So maybe giving back a little bit of the move from last week or recovering some of the move from last week. Uh, to talk about our big four, we have, where are they on this list? Somewhere in the middle. Huh. Okay, we have the S&Ps up 0.92%, the NASDAQ up 0.8%. Gold up 0.26% and crude oil down 1.81% for our biggest percentage mover to the downside out of our
Na-
big four.
Nat gas wasn't in that.
Nat gas was our biggest percentage mover to the
Oh,
downside
I'm
at
sorry.
4.14, but out of the big four, it was crude. It was crude. Which Hoop says, I love when Trump speaks. Got sideswiped by that 25% tariff. Yeah, it's going to happen. I think we're going to hear a lot more stories of that, of traders getting caught in that, especially like, and he can't even say if you haven't traded it through his presidency before, right? Coach Paul, you've traded through, I'm not trying to age you here, but a bunch of presidencies, right? But
One of them just died. Yeah.
right, right. But
Yeah.
the
But usually, you know, it's a different animal. Um, there's not press conferences for major announcements. It can come at any time and will. Um, during night, during the day, the volatility is heightened, especially at night where there's less liquidity. Um, so it gets exacerbated. Um, doesn't mean stop trading. Just be aware of that. Do
right.
not be sloppy.
Elvin
Um,
Mendoza said, I don't know. I found it to be pretty decent price action today. I agree with you. And like Coach just said, don't stop trading, right? Because we're going to have to, it's embracing the volatility, right? So we can't just shy away and say, oh, I'm not going to trade. Well, the term is 4 years. So unless unless you're gonna get a job doing something else, you're gonna have to figure it out. But with this, right, something like this, you can't plan for this. The only thing you can plan is having a stop, right? This is 9 minutes, 250 points to the downside. Maybe you're not in a position, you see this reaction and you get in with the flow. Um, but I'll say that also, these moves like this that happened last night, let's say I was looking to get long and we have a 72 point candle, 72.3 minute candle to the downside. It's not the time to say, no, this is a buy, I'm going to buy it, right? Let the dust settle here. And then ultimately, we had a pretty decent buy somewhere at these lows. But um, when a candle like this happens, it's to me personally, and everyone's going to decide to trade how they want to. It's important to let the dust settle a little bit. Let's look at last night's open. Um, we did have an abbreviated day yesterday for the inauguration. Markets pretty much just drifted to the upside. Before he came out, and then once they were announcing him, Trump as the 47th president, markets kind of chopped around a little bit. So we're gonna ignore yesterday's price action for the most part, but let's go into last night's open. I'll go to a 30-minute chart. Here is
Just so there's clarity, yesterday's action and today's action on a daily chart are combined as one big day.
non-settlement day. We actually had a question about top step daily levels. What is settlement? Settlement is the price that the exchange marks the market. Um, for bookkeeping purposes, basically. So it's going to be that price. You'll see it on the top step levels. I actually don't think I have it on mine. Oh yeah, I do. It's this blue line here.
Here's an example. Right now on the NASDAQ, the settlement price comes out within minutes of the close, of the 3 o'clock close. The settlement price for today is, we already know, is 21,709 and a half. It's currently trading 21,769, right? If it closed, and the close will be 4 p.m. Central Time. So the difference between the settlement price right now and the last price, or if this was a close, is 60 points. So, but here's the difference. Settlement price, as Coach said, is mark to market versus over the counter. If you remember 08 and the financial crisis, futures are marked to the market settlement every day. And this is an important thing to understand. Once that mark is down, all the customers are either marked in a profit or a loss at that price on the statement. If that's where margin calls come in. If you're debit, you need to get back to full margin. You got to put money in your account. If you can't, you are liquidated. And why that's important in over-the-counter markets, what large institutions did was they got to mark. Now think about this. They got to mark the settlement price or what it was worth. And at one time, it would be like, okay, if you sold the NASDAQ today at 21,371, you'd be down about $6,000 roughly. Well, you can't hide that. There's no bullshitting. It's the settlement. It's in the clearinghouse. Here, what over the counter guys got to do was it settled at 270. It's worth 217, 371. I didn't lose. It didn't face reality. That's what mark to market on a daily base is. And that's why futures, if you're going to trade, futures has a common clearinghouse where all accounts have to come to market and be settled every day.
Billy has a question. We'll get into these markets in a second. Billy has a question. Do you ever have a stop and price skips over it, or does it have to fill orders at every level? Uh, I just pulled up the order panel in TopstepX, and there are different order types that you can place. If you're placing a stop limit, you're basically saying, "Hey, I want to get out at this price, but I want to limit where I get out." So, for example, if I placed a stop limit at 21,005, let's go to a shorter time frame chart here. If I place a stop limit at 21,650 here, right? And the market shoots through it, it triggers my order once price goes through it, but there's no guarantee. What I'm saying is I don't want to sell with a stop limit. I don't want to sell anything lower than 21,650. Am I right so far, coach?
Yes,
You
I'm
look
just
like
laughing.
you look like you want to laugh.
Scotty B, a shout out to you. I saved my wife as margin in my phone. She didn't laugh. Oh, that's beautiful.
So
So you are correct, Coach. I'm sorry for this
no, all good.
distraction.
All good. I saw that in there too. Him and Andrew going back and forth with the jokes. But so that stop limit, if the market goes below your order, you may not. It's not a guarantee that you get filled at that price, right? It's saying, hey, I want this price, but it's not a guarantee that that order trades through at all if it skips your orders. If you look at the order types available in TopStep X, the only stop type that you have is a stop market, which, in my opinion, is exactly what you want. You may see some slippage in your orders because, like you said, uh, the markets are going to fill at whatever price is available. You got a little bit of leeway with sim accounts, but there's still some slippage in sim accounts as well. But with a stop market, you're guaranteed to get out of the market, which, you know, sure, you might pay an extra 8 points here, but it's better than trying to get out and seeing the market drop 200 points and having to figure out what the hell I do now.
Great explanation, Coach. And I'll just go a little deep. So if you're putting a stop limit, don't I highly suggest not unless you are in an options or a very thin market. And we don't none of them we're trading are that thin. If options is a different story. On, we don't do options, so I don't have to go into it. But you think you're limiting your loss, except for you're not filled. And I've had that conversation. I was a filling broker. I despise those orders because here, the stop is at 10. It's a fast market like last night. All right. The stop is at 10, no worse than 5. That market didn't go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. It went 10, 8, even 95, 85. And you're left behind. Um, then, then you have an irate customer coming back to you going, well, why didn't you fill me? Well, you limited it. I couldn't get it done. So I just don't, I'm not a big believer in stop limits. Market if touched, and we rarely talk about it. Now that's a great order. If you're looking to take profit, sometimes you can just put it 2 ticks under where your profit target is. Or you can say if it hits it, sell it at the market. But I'd shy away from stop limits.
And if you're, concerned or like, hey, I need to make sure I'm using the right stop type, uh, by default, most of the trading platforms that we use are going to use stop market orders. You're gonna have to consciously make that change in order to to do anything else. But all right, let's get into these markets. We have the Nasdaq. We know we had the volatility of last night. We can see this huge 30-minute candle here. It's like, how do you even catch this sell off unless you were already in it? Maybe you sold at the top of the range here. But this candle set most of the range for the day. We kind of chopped around in there, came back and checked 50% of it during the New York session. But this was the range for the day for the most part. Anything you got on the NASDAQ, coach, or the equities in
No,
general?
that last night's break. I love when you put that anchored VWAP. Like you said, wait for you keep putting that on until we break the high of that candle, I'd say. Um, but onward and upward. But nothing is going to come, nothing ever comes straight line. Um, this morning was a very tough morning. It took what, 3 hours, 4 hours before we started rallying. Um, I would just, but here's where we go with risk management. Today's after the opening, it's there. Take your, and when we talked before, our urgency or breakout 2 to 1 is, I'm finding out in day trading, you get 2 to 1, take the money and run. Um, Either way, you can go back. Oh, if I would just held on, well, because of the time frame of a day trade, it's that's why 0 days to expiration options are so volatile. Um,
We got to get out before it's
you
over.
get, you got to get out, and if you're, it's with that time frame, you get 2 to 1, you can always make another trade if you see a setup. It's a nice trade. There was a couple of examples today on that break and on the rally too. But in between that, before we took off, what it was stuck in a range for what, 2, 3 hours. Um, that's a zone where you can get wrecked. I don't, if, at least from my experience, I get wrecked because I like breakouts. But even if you were selling it in playing for a range day, you better have good risk management because it ended up not ranging. Um, Back to risk management on a day like today. If you have a personal daily loss limit of 15%, you can get hit and be thankful. Or you can get stuck. And what happens? I've been watching a lot of great boxing lately. If you're not, you get tired and you get careless, you get the knockout punch. Um, and that today I've started seeing it, feeling it. I was like, oh, you can get lazy. Well, it's just going to go back. I'll give it a little more room. Um, and it doesn't come back. Um, that can happen if you don't have a daily loss limit within a reasonable means. You can easily blow out. So be careful with that.
Indeed. Yeah, today was an interesting interesting day for sure. And these are pretty big candles, right? This is a 75-point 3-minute candle here, where again, there's opportunity. If you're trading micros, this doesn't look as drastic, but even then, uh, a lot of volatility, a lot of overlap in these candles. Um, Nowhere you're wrong. Nowhere you're wrong. In a situation like this, I think it's good to zoom out. Maybe looking at a 30-minute chart instead of a shorter time frame, where we can see all these wicks on the bottoms. Um, After that initial push lower, where talk about settlement price, that's this blue line right here. We can see once we kind of flushed below it, like the Nasdaq likes to do, flush below it by 50 points before it bounced back up. But once we got back above it, it starts to use it as a support on the way up. uh, Take a look at the S&P chart real quick. And last night's open, very similar. Pretty much the same thing here. We have this reaction, and that candle was the range for the day. Uh, right off that low, and kind of bounced, just bounced off the low and trended up the rest of the day. If you were able to catch some of this, but the New York session was again not the easiest trade. The Nasdaq did give an opportunity on a pretty nice sell-off from that opening range trade. If we're looking at the 3 minute opening range, the S&Ps did not. The S&Ps held up a little bit better, not as clean, definitely more rangy than the Nasdaq was. And then in this case, we've talked about it. Zooming out, looking at higher time frame, uh, going to a 30-minute chart where that gives you some better extremes to kind of lean against in the case where the market doesn't just go. Uh,
Yeah, it was a little different there on that half an hour, but still, a VWAP never really left the opening range.
nope.
That doesn't mean it can't or it will, but um, that's the slow leak we talk about. Um, it slowly melted up. Um, One thing I will say, remember this day is catenated with yesterday, so the distributions get kind of funky. Be aware of that. If we took from yesterday's opening, Monday's opening, and started from there, it's a little different story. That see now, I just have to. There's that candle. That is bigger candle than CPI, most likely, and it came out of nowhere. So I want to warn you again. Beware. Don't get sloppy. Doesn't mean don't trade it, but if you put on a position, you better have a stop.
Shout out to Coach Hoop in the chat. Said just a quick note: Netflix is up 17%. Netflix closed at $869 and is trading at 985 right now after that earnings report. So they must have said something good. They must have said something good, trading much higher. We'll see if it holds. We'll see if it holds going into tomorrow. Uh, but that is a huge move in Netflix. Shout out to anyone who is invested over there at all, if you are. Uh, Before we get into other markets, how do you overcome fear and greed, Coach?
Um, Develop a trading plan. The biggest fear and greed comes from not having a plan to execute. Even if you have a plan, the you have to have number one priority is account management. I'm not going to say risk management is the action of managing your account. Limit your the losses in your account balance, not your trading. Whether trading, excuse me, I should say, by focusing on how much each trade is going to cost you in relation to your equity balance. Once you do that, if you just started and just trading without practicing or at least some type of back testing of your process, fear and greed are going to be foremost in your mind. Well, how's this? Is it ever going to stop? Well, okay. Then the other one emotion is okay. I last night. This is the deadly one. Oh, I was long. I lost 500. I got to get that back. Obviously, I was wrong. I got to sell it. Rips right back. Now I'm down 1,000 in one day. Let's say it's a $50,000 combine. That's half your equity. You can't you can't really survive doing that. So, fear and greed can be tamed by executing your trading plan. How about you, coach?
With everything you just said, right? If you have you have to have a plan first, right? You have to have an idea of what you are trying to execute in the markets, and then uh, kind of going from there. I was actually thinking about this this morning, actually, before the markets opened up, and we talk a lot about discipline and what discipline uh, can get you. But I think if you don't have a plan, you can be disciplined and still uh, kind of fearful because you don't really have uh, the data behind what it is that you're doing, right? So a plan is required, right? A plan is required, a system for how you're going to approach the markets, and then going from there and understanding that anytime the market disagrees with your system, uh, the system is may not be wrong, right? And it might be wrong, but it may not. As long as it's researched and it's researched to a high enough probability that it works out in your favor eventually. Any one data point is not an indictment on the system, right? It's hey, you lost some money, so now your system is trash, throw it out. Or hey, you made some money, so just blindly follow it in any circumstances. That doesn't really work either, right? So knowing when your system works and when it doesn't work, I think is a way to get over that. The greed part of it, ask yourself why you're doing this, right? And ask yourself what you need the money for, want the money for, what want to be successful at, and then uh, the second part of that question is it possible to get it all in one day? Um, Possible? It is possible, actually. Uh, you could be short a 15 lot into that Trump candle and make more money than you expected to make all year. Probable? It's a little different. Uh, so understand that the market is presenting opportunities. We are here day trading, and I think a lot of times it gets everyone focused on a very narrow time frame. Hey, I need to make this now. But compounding an account over the course of a year uh, or over the course of your trading career is there's a lot of benefit to doing that. We're naming some cars in the chat. We're doing this for a Porsche 911. I like that. It's a nice car. It's a very nice car. Um, all right, I'm looking at gold, Coach. Pulling up a 30
Well,
minute chart, 200 moving average. What is that white line there?
what is that white line? Holding it. We're holding this rally very well. Um, we just keep bouncing right off of it. What more is there to say? Um, let's look from Sunday night's opening.
Sunday night was the night.
It's, um, yeah, the 19th.
This half day is messing me up as far
Yeah,
as
that's why.
what day it was. Like, okay, hold on a second. I'll find it. Here we go. That's last night's open right there. And all right,
Yeah,
we
it's
found
got
it.
to be it right there.
Here we go. Yep.
So
No more half days for a while, please.
yeah,
There we
I'm
go.
done with them. And then I hate to say it. Now, if we just looked at distribution using VWAP as a distribution, almost had the exact same pattern. We took off, rallied off the opening from Sunday, which was a great trade. There was a 2-to-1 trade right there. Um, Topped out, but here we go. There's those candles again, and you're going to see more and more
This
of these.
one, this one was yesterday before the market opened. I think we had some news come out about tariffs as well, right? A headline from the Washington Post that was this. Uh,
Okay, and
let's
once
see,
again, was that a 2-to-1 on the winner on the breakout?
100%,
Okay,
more than a 2 to 1,
that you only need a 2-to-1. I'm telling you,
right?
it's a day. I mean, it doesn't give you enough time to these markets. And if this is what volatility is about, it's a time factor. Um, you get that's where greed comes in too. I mean, I've seen it. I've done it. Seen it thousands of times. You buy it there, and you're like, oh, it's going to new highs. I'm just going to hold on. It's going to, this is the one. and you turn around, you don't get out, you feel some heat, and then that happens. You take a nice winner into a loss. That's greed. Be realistic in your sights on day trading. Um, so there was, but once there we go. We set again, and where's our next opening after that break?
Here is last night's open. We got the break, held the low of the other break, right? And this is why I think it's important to kind of frame out these reaction handles and news and things like that. Held the low and bounced pretty much right off of it. And held the rest of the day, right? That low we just saw it was somewhere near that 200 moving average. And this is where, we say it all the time, lean on your technical analysis. Uh, Without knowing that random headlines were going to come out, you were looking at this chart, coach, I think you would be leaning to the buy side, uh, with the market
Let's
coming down to this 200 moving average, headline or not, right? And with all of the headlines that came out and immediate reactions, if we and this is just an if, right? This may not be in your trading plan, but if you were buying off of that 200 moving average with a 2 ATR stop, the system doesn't get you out of that trade. Maybe this one, you might have gotten stopped out here. You wouldn't have if you bought somewhere near that 200 moving average, depending on where your entry was. But from a technical perspective, that's a great trade, and one that you would take repeatedly, regardless of the headlines.
let's do this, coach. Get rid of all the um boy, it's been a long day for me too. Yeah. And now let's anchor a VWAP to the 200 when it closes above. So last night it closes below and then re-grabs it up and it goes above it. Now, if I buy that, the 200 on the first candle, it settles above.
Is that the wrong one?
The
Talking about
wrong
this
one
one.
right there. Yeah, that one
So
right there.
this one. Okay, yeah, I got you. This was yesterday's price action, but it doesn't matter. Whatever time this happens.
Yeah, whatever. We just anchor it when it
Yep.
does. And then we'll just hold it unless it settles below it or two ATRs or closes below VWAP. And we use VWAP to lean on. That is, we're with the buying. All right. It goes back to 200. Say it didn't settle below it. My original risk is good. Now I put another VWAP at the 200. So every time it touches VWAP, I'm going to try this myself. Every time I'm going to hold it. If it closes below it, I'm out. If it gets to 2 to 1, I take the money and I run.
Good strategy. I like it. You definitely got a 2-to-1 in this.
And
Got a couple of
because
2-to-1s in there.
yeah, you gotta yeah.
And you're saying 2-to-1 with a 2 ATR stop, right? This is not a 4-point stop in gold, right? So 2-to-1 in that case, that 2 is a lot, right? That 2 is not a scalp, right? That 2 is, you're catching a big percentage of the move we're talking about with good trade location, allowing the market the time that it needs to work out. Uh, The
Yeah.
ATR Janish shows point value. So it depends on the market that you're trading. Right now, if we're looking at gold, just look at the increments on the side here, right? These are all in points. So these are showing point values, right? So 6 points there. If I change it to a different market, uh, crude oil, uh, these are showing ticks, right? Looking at this value on the price axis, these are showing ticks. Go ahead, coach. You were going to say something about gold.
Yeah. Well, just there's something when we talk about leaning, something to lean on. You're leaning on what? The trend and the buyers. You don't have to stay in. And versus getting in late against VWAP, because the human tendency is to wait until it's confirmed. Well, if it's confirmed just by price, you're going to be away from volume. You have a lot of risk, and you don't really know it because the trade's already been made. You're late to the game. You traded long enough, you're going to understand what I mean. It's almost a harder. Is it a hard trade to buy those 200s when it bounces off of that? Yeah, if we remove the 200, that's a hard trade. Where's my out? What?
So, right.
Who is it down? Is it going down? Is it going up? In Robert's world, there was there was right there. There was Coach Robert. There was some trades there on his pivot trade.
Strategy. Right.
Um, but still, that strategy really doesn't care about the trend or the buyers, and I understand that if that's what you want to do. But just without the moving averages, without VWAP, that's sharply unchanged. That is chop. You because you don't if you're waiting for it to it's usually going to be a lot higher if you want to sell or selling. You're selling in a hole. You're buying on the breakouts. It's hard to get a good mindset when that's happening. So I prefer to find something I can lean on. And in the pit, you could tell when a big broker had big orders, and if you were friendly with him, he might just not. If he's buying it, he might not buy anything from you. Because you're going to get your face ripped off, or you can lean on it. He's bid for 500 contracts. And when we talked about this before, can I buy? Can I get out in front of him? That's kind of what the 200 moving average trade is like.
Good stuff, Coach. Uh, all right. Let's get into some of these other markets. Um, Deshaun and Kelvin, you guys are having a great conversation in the chat. I think we just found some trading buddies. Uh, think we just found some trading buddies in the chat. It's why we're here. It's all about community. It's all good. It's all good. Like I
Oh
said,
no,
you
don't
guys
be
are,
sorry.
yeah,
That's
you guys are talking about trading, so don't be sorry about it. I'm scrolling through your conversation and trying to make sure I'm not reading it and keeping up with what we're talking about here. But uh, send each other messages on Discord because I think we just found a couple of trading buddies. So good stuff there.
after
All
you
right.
do 10 push-ups a piece.
What top step X levels do you find helpful? I like using Hoag's weekly kickoff levels, the weekly kickoff high and low, and then I have settlement on mine. I also place levels. Haven't done so in a little bit, been kind of busy, but put levels on the Top Step Daily Levels webpage. And if you haven't seen that, I'm gonna put that in the chat. But um, what I really like to see is when the levels that we all have as coaches kind of line up, because it tells me we're all kind of looking in a similar spot within a couple of points, of course, because we're not going to always be exact because everyone's looking at the markets a little differently. But if you're talking about the indicator, I use weekly kickoff, high, low, and settlement.
Yeah, mine, I look at my daily pivot. It's to see where we are against the pivot. Um, and one thing I don't want to do is if it goes the second level of resistance or support, I don't want to establish any positions there. Can be a place to take profit or not get greed. That's where another thing someone's talking about greed. It's already two levels higher for the day, and I'm going, I'll buy some more. Um, so
Yeah, I might have missed the trade at that point.
yeah, it's all right to miss trades.
It'll be another one.
Yeah. What was I was reading? Fear of Joy of Missing Out, JOMO. Where you tell yourself, I missed it. Good. I'm not chasing it. You ever get caught in that whirlwind?
Yes, I have. Chasing a trade? Absolutely.
Oh, I think that's where 80% of our problems come from. Oh, I gotta get this one out, and then as soon as you get in, what the hell happens? Well, now I gotta get out. Well, come on, and then you get like today was a classic example on both sides. That first 2 hours today was fraught with beatings. If you weren't disciplined.
George George says, or
I'm sorry.
do you ask yourself the question, "What am I doing?" Oh yeah, if you ever ask yourself that question, just walk away for a little bit. Go grab some lunch. Step away from the markets because you're not doing anything. If you ask yourself that question, you're probably not doing anything but hurting yourself and or hurting your account. Let's talk about crude oil a little bit. We had the rally up to $80 on the December contract that we were trading. We did have rollover, so the high of this contract is now 79.42. But from there, we talked about that level, that zone, whatever it is. If we look at it daily, um, market likes to trade up there and reject, and that's exactly what we're seeing now. Do we
Yeah.
trend back to the downside? Drill, baby, drill down to $70 a barrel in crude oil. Turned around.
Well,
We're back under that 200 moving average, coach. What are you looking at in crude?
we're back under the 200. Go back to the daily. Remember our trend line? I think we're going to go back and test that.
We did say that. So
Um,
that trend line was from the highs of April. We kind of had it here, right around there. Okay.
where's the this look at what goes up can possibly go down just as fast. Symmetry. Maybe we'll do. I'll do a class on symmetry. It's you find it all over in trading. Here, symmetry up and down. I think this is we're under the 200 moving average and the half hour. We've been really never recovered it once we covered above it, and we're finding a lot of pressure here. This is the kind of move. Where's the 20-day moving average?
You hear me, coach?
I can't. I just heard you now.
That yeah, that 20-day moving average is right at that trend line.
Okay, that's to me. We're going to find out what it's all about. Going
We do
back to
know
half hour. Yeah.
just from I know we don't talk about fundamentals. I'm going to leave this one to Coach Hoop when he does his class in Discord. But with the executive orders that were being signed yesterday, with the bringing in of new administration, we also had President Trump declaring a national energy emergency and is moving to boost U.S. production of oil and gas, which if there's more supply, could bring the prices down. But I'm going to go to a 30-minute chart, Coach, and here we are.
So Friday we got under that, and then we settled above it, up below it. Um, and yesterday we look. There's the first selling. There's liquidation on that big candle. Today we came three quarters of the way into that on the opening. I believe that was London. Huh.
This here is right after whatever comments were made last night. Um, almost the exact opposite of the equity markets, right?
But still under the 200 and just liquidation. This is it's still a correction from of the rally, but it's not. Well, maybe I'm stating the obvious. It's a dead cat bounce. It's not really finding all the rallies are quick and then
Sold off.
liquidation. We've seen that all the way down here. I think we hit the magical 80. Oh, did I say that word? I'm sorry, coach. That level.
79.42 on this contract, so it's
All
okay.
right, it's okay. So, a lot of pressure. I'm not looking to buy it, looking to sell rallies. I'm going to go back, and someone had a great. Can you explain the daily? I mean, the two ATR. Now this is off a half an hour. Now look at the half an hour average true range, and so we can just get an idea what the risk is on a half hour basis. So this
Looking
morning
at
at
crude oil, this morning it
8 o'clock,
was
9 o'clock
right around 30 ticks for a half an hour.
for half an hour. So I use a two ATR stop. That's $600. That's a lot of money for most accounts here at Topstep, isn't it? But don't mean you have to trade the half an hour. Let's say you use the half an hour to get a bias where you want to be. In this case, you want to looking to get short. So at 8 o'clock, let's go to the 5 minute and put the 200 moving average. Well, there you go. What time is that right there?
This is the first time we tested it was 10:40 Central.
Okay. Now we know at this point it's under the 200. Can we lean against that?
Shown that it's presented an opportunity so far over the last couple of days.
Right. So that's a trend. So we get back up there this morning at 10:40. I'm looking for a trade. I don't want to risk the half hour of $600. What's the ATR in the 5 minute time frame?
17 ticks.
17, $340, half the risk. Doesn't mean I have that's to me is okay, that's what I'm willing to lose if there's some kind of flash rally. I can't rule that out. But if it's one or less, I'm most likely gonna get stopped out a lot. So now I'm leaning. I sell it against that 200. I'm risking what we say 34. Let's say 300.
Yeah, $300.
Did it go down 60 cents from there?
Uh, yes, it did eventually. Yep.
Two to
Yeah,
one.
2 to 1. $600 risking three.
Cancel my stop. Now, if it closes above the 200, a close, and it doesn't hit my stop, I can get out with maybe a $50, $70, $100 loss and try it again. If it doesn't settle under 200 after it closes above, I don't sell it. I take a good loss. I think that's the explanation of the way I use it. So each time frame is going to be different on the average true range, which it should. Um, if you don't like that risk, you could break it down to the 3 to the 1. Just know that when you get down lower and lower, you're going to trade more and more. But that's the idea.
There we go. Thank you for that, coach. And Claude says, I think I got it now. Good stuff. Great explanation, coach.
Sure.
All right, we got about 5 minutes left. Any other markets that we want to talk about today? We saw some pretty big moves in the ags. Uh, Anything on your scouting report going into the rest of the week, coach?
Soybeans. Well, that's been on soy, but corn was the beast, and now soybeans
Soybean,
catching up. The ghost.
soybeans starting starting to catch up. Here is the 30-minute chart on soybeans. Here is last night's open.
Gap up
Gap up and
above the
just
200.
go.
Gap and go. The 200-day moving average is like 8 cents away now. Let's look at the daily real quick.
Daily here, we're not going to get the 200 moving
Okay.
average, but yeah, I mean, we can see
Okay. But
this
I
breakout
had
potential.
yeah, because you have the combined or continuation chart, but it's right there. But let's just look at this daily. We flattened out long ago. We broke that downtrend line, and we've Was at the beginning of the year. What was on it? Kind of this is looking like corn was.
Yes, it is.
Um, and it's got potential to keep going. Um, it's actually soybeans are gaining momentum as we rally versus losing momentum. See all those rallies where it's spending more time above that moving average. Um, and it's January. What does that mean, coach? It's January. It's in grains.
Seeing
Th-
new
it's a new season.
new season. Okay, there we go. I'm
The
still learning about the farm, coach.
yeah,
I was
the
born in
old
Brooklyn.
yeah,
It's no farmers here.
um the old crop, which was harvested in November. All right, Thanksgiving. The harvest that's in the new crop. And that's how harvest lows are because the harvest comes in. There's a lot of supply. It's actually way futures were born. I don't want to go into that right now, but I could. Coach Hoop will go over that in his fundamentals. But harvest comes in, usually harvest lows, large supply. But what's happening now in January? We've made a harvest low. Now we're relying on two things: Brazil, their spring, and it's getting there. I think I don't follow it that closely because I don't want to get too much on my
Now my
mind.
fundamental, yeah.
Yeah. Um, but that's it, they're in the middle of their spring. They're planting. There could be some problems there. And in the U.S. soybeans, their planting won't begin for another 3 months minimum. So this is a time where if there's any problem in Brazil and there's no crop in the ground in the U.S., it has a tendency to rally. And boy, is has it. And it's corn was the first one to go.
It was. We got a question. What hours can you trade soybeans? So this opens up 7 p.m. Central at night. So everything else opens at 5 p.m. Central. Soybeans is going to open up at 7. And then you can trade all the way up until 7:30. The market's going to close for an hour and then open up again at 8:30. All right. So here is the 8:30 open. And then everything else before it is the overnight session. Um, and again, even if you missed, all of the overnight session, let's go down to a shorter time frame chart. By the same stuff we talk about with any other market, right? Regardless of the chart, wasn't the cleanest break. Um, where VWAP didn't necessarily go with it for this 3 minute opening range, but settled at the lows. VWAP was started to flatten out. Really nice trade, and then the market is going to close at uh, market's going to close at what is that, Coach? 1:15 Central.
115 Central, 120. It's got a funky after it closes, then it opens again for a few more minutes. Just assume you're getting out at 115. The closes in the grains can be very volatile. Avoid them. Get out by 110
There
Central.
you go. There you go. Uh, VIPs. I see some questions about VIPs. Uh, The submissions are now closed, right? We had the 25 forms that went out. Teams are going to be drafted starting next week, Monday the 27th. Those teams are going to be announced. I think we're going to do 2 teams every day for the week. I think that's how they're doing it. Don't hate me if I'm wrong about that, but I think that's how we're doing it. 2 teams announced every day for the week of the 27th. So tune into Topstep TV. You'll find out whose team that you're on. It'll be a great experience for whichever coach you get matched up with. And I will say, after the last group of VIPs that we had, make the most out of it. Right, all of us as coaches are here to help you with your trading journey if you get into the VIP, and even with what we do here. Ask questions, right? Ask questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question. When we started just doing this on YouTube, Coach, we would laugh at how many times I got that anchored VWAP question. How did we anchor it to the charts? And now I do get messages from traders saying, "Hey, I use this strategy every day." So there is no stupid question. Ask away. It's why we're here. It's why we do what we do. Um, and we'll go from there. Coach, you have anything before we go for the day?
The last thing you just said it. There are no stupid questions. I'm going to reiterate. There's only your ego that blocks you from asking a question that if you're confused. In basketball, uh, I tell my, especially my younger players, if you're confused now and you're hiding it, it's only going to come out during the game. If you're confused now as a trader about something and you don't get clarity or you don't learn it, it's only going to come out when? In the middle of a trade. Um, take this time and you're learning. Don't beat yourself up for losing a money well. Reward yourself for that. Um, a loss is not necessarily a bad trade. You could have a really good trade on a loss. So with that, if you're confused, ask questions. Uh, have a good evening.
Coach, we got
Uh,
one more question. Can we get to this one? From Alec. What is your max drawdown from the high of the day in percentages? Let's say you make, let's go easy numbers. I make $1,000 in a trade, but I want to continue trading because I see setups presenting themselves. What percent of that should I hold on to?
that's a really good question. Um, test it. I would say no more than 50% of, if you're a winner, no more than 50%. Just the top of the line. Now, with that said, that's an easier. I think that's going to run on the volatility of your trading too. Um, like we just use the example of you get 2 to 1, you get two 2 to 1s, maybe you get three 2 to 1s. If
And
that trade is there, take it. But I would say that once it goes, if you get a 2 to 1 or you lose that one, you might be done. How about you?
I'm gonna say it depends on what your average daily winner is, because I would ask, when do you start counting that? Because technically, you could have a trade that is, you could have a $50 winner, but your average winning days are $500. Do you at that point say, "Hey, I'm not going to give back more than 50% of my trades," because then you have $25 to work with for your next trade setup. So what I would say is, you know, maybe 50% of what your average winning day is, right? So if my average winning day is 500 and I make some profits on the day, I can't give back more than half of that average. So 50% of that. Because what I don't want is, and I think sometimes you might take a trade, you're up $200 on the day, and you see another really good setup, but you hesitate to take it because you don't want to give back profits. Um, if that's $200 is smaller than your average loser, you might end up turning that day into a losing day. Taking trade, yeah, I think test it, like Coach said. There's no perfect answer there.
But it's a great question, and I would
It is.
you understand your when you understand your trading and your risk. You, I think, go through that and as a benchmark, no more than 50%. Because I can tell you right there, at that point, your mind starts
Oh yeah.
fucking with you, and just stop and
Yep.
enjoy the day.
100%. 100%. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Andrew, for sending over your questions. And thank you, Coach Paul, as always, for another great session. If you haven't done so already, please hit that like button on the way out. I'll go ahead and do it myself. I'm number 82. Uh, we had 81. Kind of want to leave it at 81. That's how many
Is that
points
all?
Kobe scored in that game, right? But we need more likes than that. So I'll be number 82. go ahead and hit that like button if you haven't done so already. If you like what you heard here today, we'll be back tomorrow. I'll be on Fast Markets tomorrow trading with the team and Dakota. So I'll see you then. And if not, see you for at the buzzer.
All right, everybody.
Have a great
Bye.
night.